Welcome back, everybody, to yet another tier list of mine. Now, I've done a few of these so far, however, none of them have been as requested as this one, and I'm glad to say that I actually had a video requested, because I don't get a lot of those. We're going to jump straight into things here today. This is a tier list for my favorite anime characters. If you look at the bottom, you can probably already see some things you agree with and some things that you're going to stab me to death for. So let me explain. A couple of things. First of all, none of the characters in this list are going to be ranked via being good or bad, right? Instead, the characters are going to be listed under the categories that I have here, right, which we'll get into in a second. The second thing that I want to include is the fact that these characters are, they're all anime characters, right? These are my favorite anime characters. However, some of them are from video games, some are from movies, and some are from TV shows. So they're all from different things, right? So that does include video games, since usually on these lists I'm just including anime and, that kind of thing. So anyways, let's get straight into this. So we got the tiers here. Starting with the bottom, war has been declared. War has been declared is, as I just mentioned, characters that I'm probably going to get beaten senselessly for even putting on this list as a favorite. But I'm sorry, they're just that good, Well, most are. I will get to them. The second thing is they're just fun, is the next tier. These are for characters that aren't necessarily, maybe they're not objectively great characters, or maybe they're just not very fleshed out or really that important. But these are characters that I think are just so fun to be present in whatever it is that it warrants them being on the list as my favorites. Next is objectively good, which is for characters that I think, regardless of how you look at them, they are objectively going to be considered a good character or well-written character, right? So characters that can, probably most of these are going to go at least here or above here, right? And then next is relatable, which you wouldn't think would be above objectively good, because you can have a character that's like a piece of trash and then somebody says they're relatable, right? But because this is a personal list, relatable is considered higher, right? This is pretty self-explanatory. Next is peak, which, while I do think most of these characters are peak, I on the last anime tier list that I did, I used the peak tier as, things that I consider just the best, which, by the way, I did change my mind. I think 100 Kanajo should be in peak tier from that list, and I also think that Tonikawa Over the Moon for You, I think that should also be in peak. I put both of those in amazing tier last time, and I should have put them higher. But anyways, these are for characters that are just the best, right? In their respective thing, at least in my opinion, and they're just great. And then the top row here, we have God Fell in Love, which, these are for characters that are so fantastic that, they are gods among people. So yeah, I actually was going to have this as a Jedi fell in love, right? Like, playing in the fact that they can't feel emotion or aren't allowed to feel most emotion. However, objectively, it is false that most of them don't, because, there's a lot of examples for Jedi that do, so that's why I changed it to what I did. Anyways, we're going to get started here. Starting off the list, we've got, I mentioned this on the last anime tier list as, the sole reason that 3D Kanajo was where it was. Ishino from 3D Kanajo. I'm going to put her in the peak. This character, she's so much fun just in the show. She complements all the characters very nicely, right? She's she's a genuine friend to Tsutsui, right? After the first 2 episodes, that is. What else? Her dynamic, I think, is kind of a play on how people who are considered quote unquote popular, how their dynamic may actually be, right? they may have the more likely or more open options. However, they are not necessarily always going to have it the most fortunate, right? Like in Tsutsui's case, he pretty much has it handed to him on a golden platter, right? In the case of Ito, he has it, I'm not going to say easy, but like his relationship dynamic is just, it's very fluent and it works. Until the last episode. I don't know what happened there or what happens in the 5 years gap, but yeah. But on Ishino's account, she's made a lot more interesting because she kind of fails a lot, right? And, I mean, she does end up getting her sort of win at the end, but, I mean, she's been through it. And she's also just a very aggressive character for no reason, and she's just great. That's about it, really. Moving on to the next one, we have Twice from My Hero Academia. I'm going to put him in objectively good. Now, most people would probably put him in the relatable tier, which, I mean, I don't personally find him relatable, just because of, my life experience. However, yeah, I mean, I think that he is relatable to the majority of people. As for objectively good, Twice is just, everything about him is well written. He's well written, he's funny, right? I mean, obviously his design and a part of his personality is supposed to emulate Deadpool, right? I mean, that's pretty clear. I think his quirk is very interesting, and the way that he sort of like levels up his ability, it makes sense, right? It is the pinnacle of character progression because it's getting over a fear, right? The fear of him being the copy. And when he sustains enough damage in, I think it was season 5, right? Then he realizes he's not the copy because the duplicate can only get as much damage as like a broken arm before it disintegrates. And in his case, of course, he was the real one. So he was able to create as many copies as he wants from then on, right? Now, personally, I think they did him absolutely dirty in the story, right? Spoiler warning for this video, by the way. But, yeah, he gets killed by Hawks, and he was my favorite League member. So it's actually, he's my second favorite. The others on this list. And yeah, I just think it's a shame that he was killed. And while I don't want a bunch of comments about insulting me or something, or spoilers or something like that, I do want you guys to tell me if Twice comes back in the manga, because I haven't read the manga. Just so you guys know. Anyways, next up on this list, you probably should have expected, based on my video history, is Light Yagami from Death Note. I'm gonna say peak. The top of peak, okay? Now, the reason I'm putting him in peak is for 2 reasons, right? One being not negative, but rather just not putting him in the highest tier, and the other being why he's so high on the list. For starters, Light Yagami he's just a absolutely masterfully written character, right? Everything from his personality to the way that he is just depicted in the story, right? Now, obviously, he is the main character of Death Note. However, like several other stories, he's also the villain of Death Note, in a sense, right? Because, he is Kira, right? He gets the Death Note, and he kills criminals across the planet to essentially become the god of the new world, in his words, okay? And, just his plan, his intellect, how it's utilized in the anime it's just masterful, right? Everything he does is something you never would have thought of, right? And a lot of people criticize Light for being stupid at points. However, I think it makes sense because there are 2 weaknesses that he has. There are a few videos on this, actually. Not from me, but just from other people. His 2 greatest weaknesses, one being more obvious than the other. The first being his pride, right? He's very arrogant, and he loves people knowing that Kira is out there, right? Now, he doesn't necessarily want them to know it's him, but like a lot of criminals, or I should say a lot of serial killers, he wants indirect attention, right? So he wants them to know that it's light without knowing that it's light, right? And he does this especially once El shows up in episode 2 and all the way up to episode 25, right? Where he's playing a game with El, which kind of comes in with the second part here, which is his boredom. His boredom is expressed by his randomness almost, right? And by randomness, I mean that things he does almost contradict his ideology. Like several times he kills people who are most likely innocent or are arguably innocent, right? Like, for example, killing criminals who haven't yet been convicted, right? It's like, it goes against what he thinks he's fighting for, but he doesn't really think that. He only says that he thinks that, right? Because in his own mind, it's more about what he wants, right? I mean, of course, everything he does is to secure himself as this god, right? I mean, of course, he has a god complex. And because of that, I mean, it just shows somebody who's bored, right? He's so intelligent and he's so on top that he doesn't really see much of another route, right, other than doing that. And his disdain for criminals is just, you know, it only motivates him more. Now, there's a lot to go into with each of these characters, or I'd say most of these characters, especially Light, but we're going to keep each section as short as possible. All right, next up is one from a video game. We have Hotaru from If My Heart Had Wings. I'm going to say... I'm going to say they're just fun. Hotaru, like a lot of characters in If My Heart Had Wings, is a very, I'm going to say very, I guess, flat character in terms of just their personality, right? They don't change a lot. She doesn't progress much personally. And in the original game of If My Heart Had Wings, she actually doesn't have her own route, right? She's Agaha's younger sister. And I do think it's interesting because she plays a particular role that you don't normally see, right? So, Aoi Minase, who's the main character, his sort of old friend, you know, childhood friend, best friend, Agaha, she's in the game, and she's one of the main romantic interests in the main game. But she has a younger sister named Hotaru. Now, by God's will, of course, Mo Novel made the Flight Diary, which is essentially like a King's Wrath style expansion of the first game, okay, or the main game, I should say, right? So essentially, the Flight Diary allows you to go on different paths and see new things that the original base game doesn't allow you to do. And one of those things is have Hotaru as an actual route that you can take. And, I mean, her dynamic with Aoi, I feel like, is just the best out of all the characters in terms of how it's executed, right? They both have sort of equal footing, right? It doesn't seem like one is more in control than the other, because if I'm being honest, Aoi is, well, he's a bit special, to say the least, okay? Yeah, he is absolutely, I'd say an imbecile, but I don't want to be too harsh against him. But yes, he is indeed a complete moron. And so, having Hotaru there, she has her own, you know, advantages, and he has his own advantages, and it balances out. And she's also just a really fun character in the game. I would continue, but the next spot is going to take up some space. We have God Fell in Love. Chiaki Nanami from Danganronpa. There are a few things to go into here. I'm going to try to keep it brief. Chiaki is my favorite Danganronpa character, as is many other people's. And she is, yeah, she's the ultimate gamer, is her title, essentially. She loves video games, sleepy, goofy character. However, she's arguably the most important character in Danganronpa, okay, due to her influence of Hajime. Okay, I don't know about most important character. I'd say one of the most important, but it's kind of overselling it a little to say most important. But, yeah, her influence over Hajime, and pretty much her, I'm going to say her role in the second game in bringing everybody back to hope, I'm going to say, is, I mean, it's vital, right? And her just everything she does is just fun, right? To be around, to see, and her role with Hajime, her relationship with Hajime is very interesting. Now, the base Chiaki that you see most of the time is technically an AI, okay, or at least a simulated, okay, but she was a real person at one point. That is before I watched her brutally get murdered, okay, by a bunch of traps, all right, and in the words of Raul Menendez,
your life will be consumed by absolute loss. Then and only then will you understand what you have done to me.
I mean, Spike did absolutely horrible things to Chiaki, but twice. You get to watch her die twice. Okay, so if you liked this character, too bad. Also, this isn't really entirely related, but I knew she was the traitor in the second game in like the first 10 minutes. I'm not even kidding you. I just had a feeling. Now, of course, in her case, she wasn't evil, right? The traitor was, a good thing. But yeah, just wanted to point that out. Next thing, Yotsuba from Quintessential Quintuplets. War has been declared. Okay, a lot of people do not like Yotsuba, and more specifically, a lot of people, I would say maybe 70% of the Quintessential Quintuplets fan base does not think that she should have won Futaro over her sisters. I think she deserved it big time. I think that her character just fits Futaro, right? She's kind of the opposite of him in a lot of ways, more so than the other sisters. And I think that their dynamic just works a lot better, right? I mean, think of it from Futaro's perspective. He likes teaching, so you would want somebody you think you can teach a lot to. In addition, their dynamic is a lot more friendly. He trusts her a lot more. She trusts him a lot. And I think Yotsuba, as a character herself, because she's often compared more based on her relationships with other characters, I think Yotsuba herself is a very, very deep character that you wouldn't think would be, right? Normally the goofy, airheaded character doesn't have a lot going on. I mean, it's literally in the definition of an airhead. But she has a lot of character, I guess, background, right? She blames herself for everything that the family has gone through. She's sort of ignored a lot, which makes sense, right? I mean, if you watch the show, she is seemingly she's almost a side character in how she's demonstrated, even though she is arguably the most important character, right? Especially in Futaro's life. And if you see in addition to her as a character, kind of the emotional background that she has makes her a lot more dynamic. And also, she's just a really fun character, which complements the story a lot and makes the show a lot more entertaining. I have not read the manga for 90% of these, so don't ask me. That have a manga, I mean. All right, next one is another one of the GOATs. We have here Ishigami. Okay, he's going behind Chiaki. But Ishigami from Kaguya-sama Love is War. This man right here... Oh, wait. Actually, I changed my mind. I'm putting him in relatable. Although he deserves the top spot as well. He is... Yeah, I mean, he's your depressed high school student that is generally very intelligent, but his effort that he puts into things is a lot less than what he could do, just because he figures, what's the point? He's going to fail a lot, so why bother? Additionally, he's not unrealistic. He has self-respect, he has skills, and the way that he cares for like Miko and his other friends, Kaguya, all of them, how they balance out, it just works, right? He complements the other characters greatly, and one could argue he is a third main character, right? I mean, technically most of them you could consider main characters, but in terms of the perspective of the story, he is technically considered more of a side character. Although, I do know in the manga, since Kaguya-sama is the only one where I've even touched the manga, I do know in the manga he has pretty much his own arc. It's just totally by himself as in, like, you know, from more his perspective, focusing on him. He pretty much becomes the main character. So, yeah, he's a pinnacle of great characters. Next here on the same Kaguya-sama list is Miko Ino. I'm going to put her in objectively good. Yeah. I didn't like Miko. When she first appeared in Season 2 of Kaguya, I actually didn't like her. I thought that she was just an annoying character, and I thought that they were giving her way too much slack, right? Especially Miyuki. I was like, what are you doing? Why would you ever want her to interfere with, your existence, pretty much? But over time, her dynamic with the group became much better, and more specifically, her dynamics with Ishigami, and just the goofy interactions they have were so much fun to watch, and she really added to the entertainment of the show, and I think complemented Ishigami's character a lot. And of course, in the manga, she pretty much becomes priority one for Ishigami, right? She's sort of his Kaguya, and he's sort of like Miyuki, right? Kind of to start the whole cycle over again. So, yeah, she's also been in a couple of videos. I've referenced her and had her in a few things, and you probably know this already. All right, anyways, next up we got Spinner from My Hero Academia. This man, I'm going to put... should I put him in peak or relatable? I'm going to put him in peak. This man, Spinner, is so underrated. It's insane. Okay? I would argue he is one of the best characters. Now, of course, his quirk is garbage, all right? Like, his fight scenes are not exactly why you watch him. Why you watch him is his dynamic with the League of Villains is so grounded that it's like what you would expect for somebody that's in a group like that, right? I mean, not everybody can be this super villain, right? I mean, in the words of Megamind, presentation, right? I mean, he doesn't have the kind of presentation to be a super villain like Shigaraki, right? Or All for One. But that's fine, right? And he shows that that's fine. And I think he's one of the only characters that I know that shows what it's like in the mind of a henchman, okay? In the mind of somebody who is pretty much just a follower. And the way he depicts that story of just being a follower it's great because it shows not everybody has to be the lead man, right? Not everybody has to be Walter White. Sometimes it's fine to just be the great employee that does what he's supposed to do, right? And I mean, there's different layers to this as well, but I think he definitely complements a lot of characters that are just seen as henchmen, okay? And I mean, I think he has one of the most interesting backstories as well, right? I mean, he's pretty much neglected by society, and he's pretty much just kind of done with it, and he takes inspiration from Stain, and that's sort of the reason for his costume and everything. And I think they did him so freaking badly, okay? I mean, his writing was fine, but they screwed him in Season 7 of the anime, okay, of My Hero. They did him horribly, all right? They gave him a new quirk. They made him barely able to talk, okay? They made him basically just a beast, right? I mean, it was sad to watch Spinner, I mean, such an emotionally deep character just get screwed like that and turned into this abomination. So please tell me in the comments if you've read the manga. Don't give me other spoilers, though. I don't want to hear it. If he turns back to normal. Or if... Actually, don't tell me if he dies, if that's what happens. Just leave that out. Anyways, next up here is an entry that I didn't even think was going to be on this list until I thought about it more. We have Serena from Pokemon XYZ. I'm going to put her in objectively good, or should I put her in War Has Been Declared? I'm going to say objectively good, and here's why. Serena is the one character in the Pokemon anime, which I haven't seen a lot of the seasons for. I've pretty much only seen a bunch of Gen 1, Gen 6, and Gen 7. But, yeah, I think she's the only character I've seen in any of them that actually makes Ash feel like he's above the age of 10. Okay? I mean, I don't know how to explain their dynamic, and it's been a while since I've watched it, but, I mean, she just complements Ash so well, right? And she's just a fun character to watch because she's not too stupid, and she's not, you know, overshadowing Ash either. By the way, the Gen 6 anime of Pokemon, easily the best. He actually feels like a mature individual, and he doesn't feel like he's 10 years old. Ash, I mean. And his friends are not complete imbeciles, and Team Rocket is not brain dead. So, you know. Alright, next entry on this list is one people probably don't know all that well. Violet from Find Love or Die Trying. I'm going to put her in peak. She is, she's my favorite character in the game, right? I'm not going to explain the background for any of these, right? Go look it up if you care enough. But for Violet, I mean, where do I even begin? Her dynamic with her family and the belief that they're, you know, going to come back for her or things like that. It makes her a very kind of tragic character because she was essentially abandoned by her family, or not abandoned necessarily, but sold almost into being on this show of death, right? This death reality TV show, and she believed that they had, you know, sent her there for a reason. They did not. They sent her there for money, and I mean, her thing is pretty much baking, and her interactions with the main character are very wholesome, and just, yeah, I mean, she's just a fun character to be around. Maybe I should put her in They're Just Fun. I'll keep her in peak, because there's definitely things that I'm forgetting that I'm just not mentioning, because I can't think of them. Anyways, we're just going to move on. Next up is Futaro from Quintessential Quintuplets. This man is going in They're Just Fun. Futaro, he's just a fun character to be around, right? Or to be around as in to watch. But his dynamic with the quintuplets, it's unique for each of them independently. And he's finally, you don't get this a lot with anime characters, but he's competent, he is intelligent, he's a little arrogant, but he gets a lot better later on. And he's just what you want to watch in a male lead, I feel like, right? I mean, he's like the character that you would expect in Gotham, but he's not a villain, and he doesn't commit random acts of violence. Gotham, I mean like the TV show, not like the place. Yeah, I'm just gonna put him there and move on. Next is Charlotte from Tonikawa Over the Moon for You. Watched this recently. They're just fun. She doesn't really have much character development or detail or much, right? She has a decent amount of screen time. Not too much, not too little. She's just a fun character. She's goofy. Almost, I would say, almost special needs in her intellect, right? Probably an IQ and room temperature. But she's a fun character, so. All right, last one here, you probably guessed would be on this list since Light's on this list. We have L from Death Note, okay? I'm going to put God Fell in Love. This man, L, where do I begin? He's basically Batman. I mean, I don't really need to say much more because most people know who Batman is and details about him. He's basically Batman. He's loved by pretty much the entire Death Note community. He's a genius detective. I would say one of the best examples of a detective done right in a story, right? He doesn't just have pure plot armor. To be honest, he has very little plot armor at all since, spoiler alert, he dies in episode 25, which is before the show is even over, right? It's over halfway through the show, but it's not at the end like you would expect, considering the fact that that's like, you know, the meat and potatoes of Death Note is L versus Light. Of course, he has his own successors like Nier and Mello that come later on. His dynamics with Light are just, they're so funny to watch. A lot of them are stupid, just them going back and forth, pretty much just accusing each other of different things. And he's just, the whole time, he's just totally convinced that Light is Kira, right? Because he knows. I mean, it's pretty obvious that he knows, but he just can't prove anything, okay? I mean, if he didn't know, then he wouldn't be constantly probing him, and, you know, he wouldn't have him in an interrogation room for months. I mean, prison cell. Yeah. With cameras watching him. I don't know what they fed Light in that prison cell, but anyways, yeah, L he's a peak character. He's so peak, in fact, that I made a character on my first tier list, F from Death Note, but it's FNAF. I put him in the best tier. So, and he's basically just L, sorry. So yeah. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. Take a nice long look. This is what we're looking at. I also have a nice even spread of characters from different things. So, you know, it's not just some bland potato sandwich, something like that. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment what you think. Don't insult me too badly. And I'll see you guys all in the next one. Matter of fact, my next video is going to be the last video for this year, which is going to be a compilation of 2024 moments, so like almost all of them. And then I'll see you guys next year. Have a fantastic day and a fantastic life. Goodbye.